Kia ora, and welcome to Constellations and All That. I'm your host, Tracy Cartwright, and together we will be exploring the world of family constellations with facilitators and clients from around the world, looking at different perspectives and experiences in the work, having a cup of tea and just chatting with some friends around their experiences in constellations. We'd love for you to join us. I hope that you enjoy this series as much as I have loved making it. Beautiful. Kia ora, everyone, and welcome to Constellations and All That. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Robina Meehan. Meehan, sorry. We just had a little conversation around the origins of that, potentially Irish, we feel.
It's actually spurred me to think I will continue to actually learn about it so that I can answer that question thoroughly next time.
Oh, beautiful. Well, welcome, Robina. You and I met a few weeks ago in Sydney at the Australasian Intensive, and I know that I was really drawn to you, and I kept following you around, and I noticed your name, Robina, which is also one of my ancestors' names, and there was just something about you that I felt really drawn to. So I was excited to extend the invitation to come here on this podcast.
That's so interesting. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real treat for me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And in this podcast, I'm talking to facilitators and also people who aren't facilitators, but have experienced the work. And as you've just shared with me earlier, you're not a facilitator.
Correct.
But you're passionate about constellations?
Very, like nearly weirdly passionate about it, I would say, because what it feels like to me is, so I've kind of had experiences of it over the last probably 12 years in little bits and pieces without really knowing that that's what I'm experiencing. But really, but knowing that it's shifting something because there's so much to it, but it just feels like magic. And now that I'm aware of, and especially having been immersed in it for like a full week or however, 5 days, whatever it was, just feels extraordinarily like it's part of me. And I've actually done a little bit more since we were together as well. I had a one-on-one with someone the other day.
Fantastic. So how did you hear about the intensive, or how did you hear about constellations in its form?
So the intensive, my sister was going, and she happened to come visit me a couple of weeks before she was to go there and mentioned it. And I said, what is it? And she said she was going down with someone who was facilitating actually. And then I said, I think I should go to that. And I can, because I'll still be here because I live quite remotely in Western Queensland. But I was in New South Wales at that point. And she said, well, just get in touch with them and see. So I got in touch with Johnine, and she said, yeah, there's still possibility for you to come. So I made that happen. And on the way there, I said to my sister, I feel like it's going to be something big. She said, yeah, something feels like it's rumbling for me too. And it was a very remarkable time.
Yeah. The whole thing is a constellation in itself, isn't it? From the time you did say, yes, you're going, to all the things that appear and the people come in. And I know I've experienced that, some people might trigger you a little bit, or others bring in an energy that is very unfamiliar. There is so much going on in it. So it's really important to be mindful and a lot of self-care in that environment.
I experienced all of what you just mentioned while I was there, actually. And it's nearly like you've accepted an invitation to something without really knowing what it was for. That's how it felt to me, but also with deep trust and, taking responsibility for all of me in doing that. But like you say, that thing about you watched me, it's just from the get-go. Even when I arrived there was one particular person that I kept watching too, and I just loved him, like with deep platonic human love. And I said that to him, like even just being able to just meet someone and say, I just love you, and not in a on mushrooms way, in a just a deeply human way, like it's really, I don't know, just the essence of people can such more deeply be felt or
Yeah,
experienced somehow. Yeah.
yeah. It's amazing, isn't it?
Mm.
So as a non-facilitator, but a participant, how would you describe constellations to someone who hadn't experienced it? And when I say, I'll ask that question first and then I'll ask the next one. Yeah.
So how would I describe what constellations is?
Yeah, well, from your
My
experience of it,
experience of
right?
it.
How would you, if you were telling your friend over a cuppa, what would you say
Well,
constellation
what I
is?
would say is weird as shit. But I say that with the deepest reverence and respect in my heart for what it is, because it's big,
Mm,
solid, true work, and it's deeply necessary and beneficial. And if sometimes when you feel like, I don't know, I just know it's not mine. I don't know. It's like this pattern keeps repeating and I can't seem to shift it. Or like it might not even be something quite in your consciousness yet, but you can feel like there's something. Constellations, I feel like, has the ability to just sort of sort, and what's yours remains yours, and what's not, you can shift.
mm, yeah. How did
Mm.
you find the little exercises that
Um,
we did quite a few of those over the
the
5
little one
days.
that initially, it actually took me a little while to sink into it, because I was a bit like, oh, okay. And then I felt a bit responsible to my partner if I was doing something with somebody else. Like, am I going to get it right for them? And then it took me no time at all once I sort of surrendered to the process of it all being
Mm,
there.
mm,
No, it's just inevitable.
mm.
And all of those little things, and there was so much in one space during that like it's taken till now to start feeling the effects of what's actually gone down.
And it can take, yeah, and will ripple on for a long time. I
But
did a piece.
enormously somatic. That is another thing that I would describe. Like, it gives you an opportunity to disconnect from your intellect. You don't have to make sense of it. You don't have to know why. You don't even have to know any of the things. You don't have to have a memory necessarily of anything, but you can still process it.
Mm,
And
it's
your
felt.
body, your cellular self will take care of it.
Mm, yeah, it's that felt experience, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, I did a piece of work, man, 5, 6 years ago in Bali, and over the time, probably the last year I haven't, but over the last 5 years, I've noticed when something shifted in that particular piece, like I could really feel that it was connected to that piece of work. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, there's another layer of that that's just dropped in, or
Mm.
I'm feeling like it's just cleared away, or and other constellations that I've done, other experiences that I've had, I felt it straight away, and there's been a big shift. And then I know then I haven't so much noticed the ripple out effect. So it's never the same. Like whenever I have a constellation, there are different ways in which it can be integrated within you, right? And
Yeah.
continue to ripple out, or
Yeah.
yeah, or have that sort of expansion there and then on the field. Mm.
I had a really interesting experience being there with my sister, and experiencing each other in constellations and some of the bigger group constellations as well. And just the experience of that, knowing her in life and then seeing her expression in the field when
Mm.
she was representing, was also quite an incredible experience that had an impact on me, even though I was an observer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. Beautiful. When someone uses the term having a constellation, and the first time you heard that, what did that bring up for you? Because I'm asking this question because a friend of mine has said, if you're not in the know, what's a constellation?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, I'd done some work in epigenetics and I'd
Mm,
learned quite a bit about that. And I spent a weekend doing a workshop with Mark Wallen, and
Yep.
he's authored the book It Didn't Start With You. And I was so intrigued by his work. And I had definitely experienced that within myself and with a lot of the women that I'd worked with, that thing about, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like, I can't pinpoint what the thing is or where it started. And some of the stories he tells in that book about people's experiences in their own life that seem to have no bearing on anything they've ever been through was so intriguing to me. So I'd done some work with him standing on footprint, like different people standing in people's shoes effectively, you know?
Yeah.
So I sort of thought that you said, what would I say a constellation is?
Like when you first heard people using the terminology a constellation.
I didn't even really know what it was, but I suppose I was able to observe it happening, and it lured me.
Mm.
So because it's just like work, like in the inner work. I've been in personal development for about 15 years now, intentionally, knowingly, you know. And I feel like it's like putting your hand up for some deep work if you're going to say yes to a constellation. I
I
wouldn't
think
have
it
a
calls
clue.
you, eh?
Yeah,
Calls you.
I wouldn't have a clue how to constellate someone, if that's even a word. But also once I'm in it in the experience of a constellation with somebody, with it being facilitated, like I found myself keeping on saying it, the thing, who would watch TV when you could sit and watch this all day? Like I was so invested, and it was like I could preempt what was happening. Oh, it's because of this, or it's because of that. And it would be annoying to sit beside me. You know, of course I can be there in silence and hold the space and all of the things, but that's what it feels like to me. It's like a really intuitive untangling and sorting through, kind of like a decluttering of a situation,
Mm. Mm.
or a yeah, like even of somebody's mind, or yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
ordering or untangling a knotted mess.
Yeah. I think, and you can see when you're witnessing, when you're sitting on the outside and someone else is sitting in the hot seat or the client seat or whatever you want to call it, they're having an experience of their own family system, which is what we call a constellation. You get to witness lots of things shifting in their field, but also you can relate it to your own. Quite often, there's things that you go, oh yeah, boom, light bulb moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I did a constellation the other day in a way that I'd not seen done before or had experienced myself because it was on Zoom. And to represent, we had 3, what do you say, representatives?
Mhm.
And they were pillows. And we did it blind. And it was extraordinary that
Yeah,
all of the things could come into play like that. And to do it blind, and then partway through, we revealed what the representatives were.
yeah. It's
Very,
amazing what you can use, right? And you think of
yes.
the cultures that use like feathers and twigs and things like that to read what's happening in the environment or whatever's going on. It's the same thing. It's like um,
I wonder
I
if it's like sandpit when you know, play therapy with kids a little bit. Do you know anything about that?
I think there's a little bit of essence of that in there.
Mm.
Sand tray work, yeah. I often refer to it as, the people of the fire, our people of the fire, because we all go back to the original people of the fire and how they would have been so in tune with what was there
Mm.
around them and the environment within the community, within their tribe. For me, this work has come through, yes, in the 80s with Bert Hellinger. However, it has much deeper roots than that. Mm.
When I lived in Central Australia for quite a lot of years, and part of my time in Central Australia was nursing. And I met a lady while I was nursing who was a ground dweller. So her role,
Mm.
have you heard of that before?
No, what a
Her
nice.
role in the community was to sit, to dwell on the ground, be on the ground, and she was, with deep respect, I say maybe like a watchdog. She
Hmm.
could feel the she could feel the change in the vibration of the earth. She could hear the sounds. She could sense. And that was her work. And to the point that her body, she couldn't stand. She couldn't weight bear at all. The shape of her, so she sat cross-legged and her bottom was really big. So when she was on the bed, her bottom was out behind her and we needed to have the bed up.
Wow.
She could lean back. Her shape had changed because she'd been a ground dweller. And that was her work. That was what they entrusted her to, was to keep them safe like that. And I feel like it's similar. It's very energetic and frequency driven.
Mm. Oh, ground. Oh, you've got me stuck on that one now. Just let me.
I wish I could share that, like, as I still have a picture of it. And I want, her English was limited. And of course, my language for hers was very limited. So for us to communicate was not necessarily easy, but I was able to care for her. And then the questions I was able to ask of the people and her family coming and going, I was asking a lot of questions of them because I was so intrigued.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. And it really brings us back to, I mean, in society, in original cultures, there would have been the different people that had their different roles, right? And
Mm.
in constellations, we get to feel a little bit of all of that.
Mm.
Yeah. So you could stand in a place that of the ground dweller, you could maybe put down a marker point to represent that person
Mm.
and have a wee taste of what that might feel like.
Mm.
I did a piece of work with someone the other day. We were just sitting having a coffee, and we used the salt and pepper shakers and the sugar sachets, and you could see the light bulbs going on,
Mm.
and it just shifted a whole lot of things for her there and then. And in this cafe, there were lots of people around, but felt like we were in a little bubble of a sphere of energy. And nobody, it was almost like people were walking past us and not even noticing us. So, yeah, I think we could
I
call.
was raised in such a way that the concept of energy, like even the languaging of that energy and frequency and things, were not welcome, I suppose. It was like,
Mm,
it was, don't talk about that, it's woo-woo, it's not safe, be scared, but I felt very
mm,
much like it was the essence of me, but to curate it in such a way that I didn't offend any of the people who were my caregivers for definite, or do it the right way so that I didn't,
mm.
like it was like a very much a curated sort of a thing. But now that I don't have hesitation around any of that, I just feel like it's just being actually alive and tuning in, like just choosing to be available, and then it presents itself.
Yeah, and get out of this, right? Get out
Yeah.
of your mind, the head, the having to know and having to control, and allowing yourself to feel it.
Mm.
Yeah, beautiful. And what you took home and the experience that you had, what would you say has been the biggest, without having to go into your story or any of sharing into the depth of it? What would you say was your biggest takeaway from the event?
A very, very deep, internally referenced inner knowing, a contented knowing. And actually, in the final constellation, the role I played was contented knowing. And I was standing on a chair and my arms were up, and it was a very sure and certain sense, without any ego or authority or superiority, just a very true and deep contented knowing. And that has become apparent. I don't even know really how to talk about that. But it's in my body. Mm.
So I know what you were sharing. I know that experience of bringing that home and that whole. I got the experience representing God last year in an event in Sydney, and I'm not religious at all. In fact, far from it. but the opportunity to experience that once my ego dropped down, like it was just, and it was a very quick process, like, because I was, first of all, I was like, how am I going to do this? And then I stepped in and had to go through the process of just like letting go of any thoughts or feelings. So becoming an empty vessel for it. And once that was clear, the experience, the expansion, knowing that I was part of everything and that I felt very neutral to what was a negative energy in the field and what was a positive energy in the field. I felt completely neutral and hot but whole at the same time. It was such a wonderful experience. I was so grateful for that because of things that came later for me that I was about to experience and not knowing they were coming. And I could really tap into that, having been that representative, and just
Mm,
into my God self, into the part of me that has, that is that part.
mm.
So, so beautiful to have.
Even listening to you speak and having felt that experience for me of being there as that contented knowing, and the thing even you say about being an empty vessel, the way that I was raised, all of that would be ringing alarm bells. But I think particularly that constellation that I did to represent that was so fascinating because the facilitator of that constellation ended up being huge, but the facilitator had triggered me, like you mentioned earlier. Sometimes that's a thing that happens. I've been quite triggered by her initially when I met her. And then I went and told her we partnered for something and I let her know that's how I was feeling. She's like, oh, why did you feel the need to tell me? And I said, I just feel like in this environment, like it's brilliant, be upfront and share it, and then just let's see what comes.
Mm,
And then to see all of that at work, it was nearly like, for me, because I was raised very strictly and held very tightly in Christianity. And
mm,
it was like a complete release of the fear. Like, stop with the fear. It's inhibiting you. And like the fear of the dark and the light and blah, 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 blah. Just all of it. And I think that had been part of what my triggering or activation around the facilitator had been, was around that sort of stuff. And it was a really clean, clear knowing that it's not about that. It's actually not, like, drop all of that and just be in this bit.
mm.
Yeah, very sort of safe and reassuring and content.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. And that coming into a space like this and knowing that there will be people that push buttons,
Mm.
and when they push a button, we'll have a look at that. What's
Mm.
your button?
Yeah, let it be an invitation.
Exactly.
I actually just said to somebody else yesterday, it reminds me of Dr. Kelly Brogan. I love her work. She's in the States. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she says, enter through the upset. That's always
Mm,
a good spot, you know?
yeah, absolutely. And so, are there any of the exercises or the experiences that you've had that you feel like, because I know you've got a couple of children and you have a very busy life, is there anything that you feel like you've brought back that you can integrate with the children, like any experiences or?
I think I definitely feel like just it's been an embodiment of the more we work on our own inner self, the more it just naturally plays out in our experiences with our children, and we're without assuming ourselves to impose our own work on them, it's naturally unfolding anyway.
Mm,
And I see that just in our daily round, in the simplicity of it, without the force or the push and the shove and the resistance. It means the resistance falls away, I would say.
mm.
Mm.
Nice.
Communication has opened up much more easily, and there's no I they can't feel a it's so tricky to find words to talk about it sometimes, isn't it? Like they don't feel any pressure of expectation from me now. it feels to me like that. Not because it takes the consciousness away from it, so that's why it's hard to talk about, because it's not like I would have said, I have an expectation of them beforehand, but now it's like that's fallen away, so that, and they can feel that energy because the children already have it going on. It's like
Yeah.
we're the ones that have to unlearn the intellect of what's been conditioned into us. They already know if we just observe and be in the experience of their already knowing. I really enjoy asking them for their perception of things often.
Yeah.
And hang a lot of weight on it, Ariel. Not in a way that would pressure them as though they're the ones made the decision or whatever the thing is, but just, like as the more and more I get to know my own intuition, I've really recognized that they already know.
They have the clarity. They often have the clarity without all of the pressure and the preconceived things that society expects of us, right?
Yeah.
If they haven't,
Yeah.
they can be little sages in their own right.
And I think if we just leave space for them to have it without putting expectation on their days, like rise now, bus now, school now, wah, wah, wah. Leave room for them to be in their own experience of being alive. It's all there already. Yeah, like don't rob them of that,
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I've been really enjoying, and just practicing presence has always been something that I give effort towards, and it feels like it's becoming much more natural without my needing to effort. So
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. I think my parenting would have been very different, particularly with my eldest two, if I had experienced constellations a lot earlier. I mean, everything's perfect and all in perfect alignment, but on reflection, I know that, well, I would have been doing my own work, right? And back then I wasn't when my girls were little. And through this work, I've had to do a lot of self-forgiveness
yeah,
and putting myself back in order for different things,
yeah,
like in the order of where I belong in the system of the family, which has really allowed for space for healing and movement and yeah, with my girls, with my first husband and like in my family system now. It's beautiful.
It's definitely remarkable.
I know that sometimes I've experienced the work and come home to a shift in the family. And I think part of it is that I'm received differently because I've moved something. And then that allows them to move and be in a different position in my whole system. And there's an unconsciousness of sometimes it can be a little bit sticky. There's a bit of resistance because things are used to being in such a certain way. If we can do it without resistance and like you say, just like just being in it and allowing things to be in their place, finds its way a lot easier.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Mm.
kind of like having oiled the machine in a way. It's like you don't have to. There's no push or.
Mm.
Another thing that I did while we were in Sydney, that made a huge difference was stepping into more mature part of my femininity. Were you there?
Mm-hmm.
What did I step into? Do you remember?
I think that's a really good description of it. Yeah, it's a
But
really
even
good description of it
it's
because
interesting,
I
isn't it?
got to be able to be part of that in myself as well. The facilitator offered us the experience. Who else wants to experience this? And my hand was like, yeah. So I came
One
up
of the
and
things I was astounded about in that room, but it was also reassuring in another way for me, was that there were women of all ages. And I would say I'm 44 and I feel like I was probably one of the youngest there. And she asked about, was your experience, like your rite of passage into Menzies, a positive experience? And it was not. It was not something anyone could feel into. And it's, we're all born, we all go through puberty, we all die. They're all really natural things. that make humans humans, yet it's so shamed for so many generations globally. That there
Mm,
was a lot of representation in that space, and to see that and to be choosing something different for me. And I don't have daughters of my own, but even in what I'm sharing with my sons, and also I've got quite an extended family. I'm one of 6 children, so we've got a lot of nieces and nephews. But what I can share in amongst that, just by becoming comfortable with my own self in my own body, is so beautiful and so like offers such a comfort and such a reassurance. And it's like, if I was fortunate to have an aunt who could gift me some of the things that I needed that I couldn't access anywhere else, when I, that needed to feel like support as I was growing
mm,
through that time. But it's big work. And I used to be of the belief that the older you get, the wiser you get, and that all the old girls, all the old people, that the old women, they're wise old ladies. But it's been, in the last decade or so, of the realizing that no, 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 no. So many of the old girls are in old girls' bodies, but they're little girls in there, and they don't know what to do either, and they haven't gathered wisdom because they've been so stunted and stalled because of something, you know.
yeah, frozen in time.
Yes. And the more I've matured into the essence of me, the more I've been able to see that and feel it. And so not belittle my own awareness in the presence of others older than me, just because of that. Like, I've really realized that that's a very real phenomena. And to stunt myself now would be to also be doing the exact same thing that I'm seeing. But what we need is the evolution of all of us into more of who we actually are. And that's what I mean about the sorting. Because then if you can shift that gate or that fence that's blocking, that's stunted, then you can open up for the free flow of whatever it is. And I have felt that since coming home as well. I've definitely felt the maturing, what feels like out of a juvenile state of womanhood into steadfast, like I feel like standing up and standing on my feet, like a real steadfast, strong knowing. And it's a combination of that thing, that contented knowing that I mentioned before, and in my womanhood, it's, yeah, very solid.
Mm, mm. And in that process, you will have been creating pathways for the ancestors to find peace in that.
Mm.
The women who were stifled, right? And future nieces and nephews, grandchildren, future descendants to be able to find pathways forward as well.
Mm.
Yeah,
Another
absolutely.
very fascinating thing that was an experience for both my sister and I. In our family, we have, on my maternal side, there's a lot of Indian heritage we're very aware of and has been spoken about a lot in our family. On my dad's side, there's a lot of German heritage that we don't know much about at all, and it hasn't really been spoken about much. Our name suggests that, and also we're aware of when the descendants came to Australia from Germany. But
Mhm.
it was so interesting to be surrounded by multiple, there were 4 in particular German women in Sydney for that weekend, and 3 of them are 3 generations of German women, not of the same family, but generationally 3 German women working together and feeling the
Yes.
strength of that and being in the experience of it. And there was one other lady who was also a participant, and she was drawn to my sister and I, and she kept very strong accent despite having been in Australia a very long time, and she felt like she knew us already. And she came and
Mm.
sat between us at one point too, when we were just in a workshop. It was a bizarre sort of an interaction, but there was something in that. So it is very interesting what opens up, and we're both quite curious to see what might become moving forward,
Mm.
without any search for anything in particular. But, who knows?
Yeah, the field is calling you, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I did ask to get put on a wait list the other day for something the year after next that will take me further into this work. So yeah, something.
Oh, wow. Nice,
Mm.
nice. So are you saying that you would be considering training in the week.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Mm.
It'd be amazing. You are amazing anyway. Can already recognize that. But I know that what you're going to bring through is going to be fantastic.
The
With,
work
with,
that
with all that you have, like we
yeah.
bring our own uniqueness to the work as well. And that was one of the gifts that Hellinger said was teach you the bones. He didn't really want to teach at the beginning, but when he finally did agree, he was like, I can give you the bones and you add to it your own flavor.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I just find it so beautiful. I'm drawn in like it's already part of me. Like that's what I mean about like watching it. Why would you watch telly? Because it's like I'm in it. I'm already in
Mm.
it. And I just want to stay there all day.
Yeah.
I kind of want to talk about your cacao.
Okay, what do you want to talk about?
Oh, because it's like, when you get it, when you like I've drunk cacao a lot, right? Like I know cacao. But when you have the Arnott's biscuits at your nanny's house and they're different to the packet you buy yourself.
Yeah.
Or if your mum might put mothballs in the cupboard, but when you smell them at your nanny's, it's different.
Yeah.
I want your cacao for those reasons. I don't even know what it was about it, but it was very often when I've had cacao, it's like, ooh, bites me a little bit, especially with, like in ceremony. And it was so smooth and potent.
Mm.
Mm.
And so for the listeners and the viewers, Robina was part of my presentation at the conference, and I wasn't able to actually make cacao drink for everyone to drink, but I had in a form that you could just pop it on your tongue and allow it to dissolve. And it was beautiful, wasn't it? Like that, a whole could feel the energy shift as it started to sink in for people, and they're really becoming very mindful and very conscious, yeah, with the cacao, opening their heart and helping them connect to the bliss and the joy.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, it was very, very, very beautiful.
It had some blue lotus and kawa in it as well. So the actual plant material, rather than a tincture or anything like that, it was the actual plant material. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that really helped.
I think one thing about constellations too is like what you say about bringing your own flavor to it. It can just work in conjunction with so many things. And just even like you say, like round the dinner table, like you're at the cafe the other day, just the way you be in conversation can create a constellation. If
Absolutely.
and I really like that. The work that I'm doing now is with water and recognizing like the consciousness of water and the aliveness and the frequency that we've had some tadpoles, for example, right now, this last 24 hours, and the water was becoming really like it was evaporating really fast, and they're all
Oh,
still about, but I'm like, they're very hungry. So we went to our local lake. So where we'd gotten the tadpoles was actually the dog's like water, which is a big thing. The dog can get in as well, but we've been away. So these tadpoles have grown. So we brought some so that the kids could watch them evolve right before our
yeah.
eyes. So but then we gave them some of the weed from the local lake. So it's still just a natural body of water for them. And they hooked into it with such vigor last night when we gave it to them, because I thought, oh, they're obviously hungry. They needed it. So it's just a Zola growing on top of the, lake. But this morning there's a lot of dead ones and there's some others that are just not doing so
Oh,
well. But it's like there's life everywhere moving amongst us. And if we stagnate in any way, be it in our waters, be it in our breath, energetically, we're severing life. So
oh,
it opens up so much room for the flow. And I just feel like there's so much flow in my life, in my business life, in my family life. I just want to keep opening that up. And a lot of what's felt stagnant for me has been what's felt like ancestral stuff without me able to give any language to it. And
yeah.
this feels like it really opens the ability for flow in that.
have you heard about, I haven't witnessed it, but I've heard about it, facilitators using constellations on water.
Oh no.
So they have little representatives. I don't know what they use, but say you use like little bottle caps
Uh-huh.
and they represented things, and then you just let the body of water as your field
Mm-hmm.
and the things move around.
Ah, that's so
Sometimes
interesting. I'd love to, if you know of any facilitators that do that, heads me up in their direction so I can observe because
have a look on ANSCI, which is the Aotearoa New Zealand Constellation Incorporation. So
yeah.
ANSCI is the body. There is on the website, there's a lady here in New Zealand that uses it. I don't know if she does anything online. I haven't seen that. But you could Google it as well and have a look.
So I know Veda Austin's work is so beautiful in the consciousness of water. And
Mm,
it's I feel like it's sort of along all along those sort of lines, you know, of the living the life.
absolutely. So I mean, I'm thinking, you could use a body of water, a tray or whatever you've got and putting the intention in that is the field. And then whatever the intention is of the client, I guess asking the field to hold that,
Mm.
right? Because that's what I do when I'm working with someone. We're working in we always put in the positive desired outcome, the PDO, so that we have something to move towards. Otherwise, it's like walking through treacle.
Yeah.
So say you imprinted that into the water, the intention of this is what you're aiming for, and then you put your representatives in, and then just notice, witness. I guess you're not gonna. I don't know how you would get the feedback from, because normally if you were using an object on the floor, you could touch it or you could um, but then I do it online when people look at things through an app and they're looking at the circle in front of them and then they're tuning into what it would be like to be standing on that yellow circle or the green circle or whatever. So you could, I guess, tune into what it would be like to be that blue bottle top or the green one, and now it's just bumped into peace, or it's moved past the block and it's gone over
It'd
to
be
the
fun to
barrel.
explore. Yeah.
What, wouldn't it? That'd
Yeah.
be amazing. Mm. Ooh.
Isn't that interesting?
Because I've been watching you and following you on Instagram as well, and
Ah,
you're sharing your journey on there with water and yeah, and Vita Austin that you shared about her. She's here in New Zealand. Amazing stuff that's coming through there, right?
mm.
I yeah, and just knowing that that was the perfect conversation to have, because that may be something that you lead in bringing through some new ways of working with water and constellations. Who knows, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Mm.
It feels good anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Oh, beautiful. It's been so good to talk to you, Robina.
Likewise, I'm glad we were
Um,
able to make that happen.
yeah, yeah. Now that I'm feeling a little bit better, it's been a little bit of a journey and constellating myself and as well as having others. I've been processing quite a bit of grief this year with the loss of my mum transitioning and I guess also parts of myself.
Hmm.
Hmm. And I mean, it's all great. It's all good. It's just another layer and giving myself time to stop and look at things. So thank you for having the time to come and be with me and being patient with me because I cancelled on you earlier.
Oh, all okay. It's things happen as they ought. I definitely do have a deep belief in that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I'd love to get in touch with you again in the future as well. Just check in when you've been seeing where this journey with Constellation takes you. So yeah, we'll see how that pans out in the future.
Yeah, I have no doubt that our paths will continue to cross.
I'm sure. I'm sure. So yeah, beautiful. Have an amazing day, and yeah, thank you so much. Now, if people want to, before we sign off, if people want to know a little bit more about you or follow you on Instagram with your site, how would they find you?
Instagram is definitely the best, and I'm just at Robina_Meehan. There is an underscore in the middle. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and is there anything else that you'd like to share before we sign off?
I don't think so. I think that feels good.
Great.
Mm.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you for listening. Head over to Instagram and tell me what's resonated for you with this episode. You'll find me at tracy.cartwright. That's Tracy with no E. .cartwright. Or head over to my website, tracycartwright.co.nz, and receive a free audio with the gift from your ancestors. So until next time, be kind to yourself and have fun doing it.